Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special FWA Vendetta 2005 press conference. I'm Hardcore John Atkins, joined by special guests, the Wonder Kid Jonny Storm and Simmons. Well, thank you very much for joining us, guys. What are you up to this evening?
I'm actually just here to have some fun and just watch FWA action. Not really meant to be here, but thought I'd come say hi to everyone. What are you up to tonight, John? What are you going to do?
I'm just filling in till the American Dragon gets here.
Well, I heard he arrived shortly, so thanks. No, I'm only kidding. Although he is here, we think, hopefully. So great, good. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the Wonder Kid, Jonny Storm, or Simmons? Any questions?
Anything.
Any questions at all?
Anything.
The result. Just kidding.
I just want to say it was a travesty.
Yeah, let's go out the back.
Johnny, I hear you're going to Thailand for a tour. Would you like to talk about that, please?
Johnny, we hear you're going to Thailand for a tour. Would you like to discuss that?
I just got back from Thailand.
That's the one.
2 weeks ago. It wasn't a wrestling tour, it was just to go out and shag. It was good. I just went out for holiday, saw Scott Conway and stuff like that, and if any of you guys know anything about Scott Conway, he used to run in England. And he's come back in October and he's going to run a couple of weeks worth of shows, so we were getting down to come
in England?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Probably like his normal run, like Southampton and yeah. Southampton and Bournemouth and Torquay, all those sort of places. He was on about getting Rikishi last I heard. So it might be a good little tour if you guys want to check it out.
Yeah.
We'll stay off the coast.
Oh, I'll check that out. And Simmons as well, on a serious note, thinking about it, you've only recently returned to the FWA after, well, just before Christmas, I guess. You were taken into hospital. Your cystic fibrosis, a condition you've suffered from birth, kind of, I don't know, flared up. Is that the technical term for that? Do you want to just tell me how you've kind of eased your way back into wrestling? How's that going?
Just being the king, you know. Just of life, you know, just get over things. And, I'm okay.
Good. Well, you say get over things, but if I'm not mistaken, at the last Walking show, you lost your FWA Tag Team Championship. It's a real shame because I know you really enjoyed holding those belts and they meant a lot to you. But
they did, you know what? Whenever I had a bird come up, you know, they go, "Oh wow, champion, wrestling champion!" They'd love it. So I'm gutted I don't have them for that reason. It was a pain in the arse having to bring it to shows though, but I am disappointed that I'm no longer the FWA champ. Tag champ.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I spotted a little bit of dissension between yourself and the Duke towards the end of that match. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Well, I'm not being funny, but I'm getting a bit tired of him. He's got a big mouth and a big belly as well. So not unlike Dan at the back there. So, he'll get what's coming.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. A bit of dissension between the camps here in Hampton Court. And Johnny, tonight, who are you wrestling here?
It is me and the Phoenix Jody Fleisch against James Tye and 5-star Mark Bell.
And again, you're teaming with your, I guess, on-again, off-again best friend, Jody Fleisch, who himself has only recently returned to wrestling after an absence of, I don't know, nearly 2 years maybe. So, yeah, how is he kind of getting back into the swing of things?
I've done a couple of shows with Jody already. We did France last week and stuff like that, and he's good, man. He's putting a bit of size, and but the good thing about Jody is, which you guys know, he's just a natural talent. So he's taken back to it really, really well, and I don't think tonight's going to be any exception. And we got two of the best guys who want to get our hands on tonight, so I'm sure we're going to see something pretty special. You know?
Sure. And are you looking forward to teaming with Jody?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't think we've ever teamed, or maybe we've ever teamed like once or twice in like our whole career, but it'll be something different. I mean, I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you, because it's all new to me. Like, I'm not much of a tag team wrestler, so tagging with Jody as well is definitely going to put the cat amongst the pigeons. So we'll see how that one goes.
Well, I know you're looking forward to tag team competition in the near future. We can't really go into that too much. So, Simmons, tonight on FWA Vendetta, who are you wrestling?
Who am I wrestling?
Yeah.
Ask any of these people here and they'll know that I'm not wrestling tonight.
He's not on the show. Well, do you think we can expect to see you maybe in a surprise appearance?
I don't know, actually.
I guess it wouldn't be much of a surprise if you could say.
The surprise has been ruined, actually, really.
Great, okay. So again, anyway... Do you know your way to... Well, yeah, you guys have been wrestling abroad a lot recently, actually. Would you like to kind of talk about your trips abroad?
Well, actually, I just had my 2 shows neatly cancelled, which is spoiled. But I'm going back in August, so if you want to follow me to Rome, I'll see you there. Yeah, I've been to Italy a few times, been to Germany as well, but I haven't been for ages because I upset someone in Italy. So it took me this long to grovel. Yeah. So please have me back, and they finally have.
Why did they?
The president of Italy, yeah.
Why did they let you come back?
Just because they realised that they can't live without me. I draw the houses in Italy, that's why.
Who pulled out?
Test and A-Train actually pulled out. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to Italy on holiday, no Test, no A-Train, but Andy Boy Simmons. I know what I prefer.
We are going to Spain in September.
That's right. Lads holiday.
Are you going to be wrestling when you're out there?
Maybe with a few of them.
Anyone wants any few words to John Farrell, we will pass them on.
Alex might be listening.
And Johnny, were you meant to be going back to America later this year, or
maybe
going?
IWA Mid-South. I spoke to Ian briefly when he was in Germany. And he just said, do you want to do the Ted Petty Invitational tournament, which is quite a big tournament in the States. And I did the one in 2003, I think. It was really, really good. And he just asked me if I want to do it. I said, yeah, so hopefully I'm going to do that in September, the week after we get back. And then hopefully PWG, or I heard Carino's going to start running World 1 again in Philadelphia, so either that as well. So just a little tour, end of September, maybe.
Okay, great stuff. And then in the meantime, just continue to work around England as much as possible?
Yeah, I'm doing the camps at the moment, which is always fun. Down Great Yarmouth Way with Paul Tyrrell, if you guys know him, and Charlie Rage, Darren Burridge, who's here tonight, I do believe.
And what about the super shows coming up as well? What are your thoughts on them? There's a couple of big, the Butlins weekly super shows. There's not Butlins. There's super shows coming up. You know, shortly. I'm sure you're booked for one of them, Johnny, aren't you? No, Simmons.
I am actually. Yeah. Doncaster, be there or be square.
Oh yeah, I'm on that one.
What do people think about these shows, actually? I mean, you must have read on the internet that there's... We're going. Who are you looking forward to seeing? Just out of interest, like a straw poll kind of thing?
I've got to see Andy Boy Simmons.
Thank you.
And John.
Oh, that's you.
Okay, does anyone have any more questions for Simmons or Jonny Storm?
I just want to say Maxwell shouldn't have been voted out of the Big Brother house. That was just stupid. I watched it last night and it was shit without him, you know. Andy's just lost, Craig's lost. It's not entertaining anymore. And they should do a wrestler's Big Brother.
Oh yeah.
Who do you think should go in a wrestler's Big Brother?
Alex. Me. Simo. Nikita? Yeah. Maybe Nikita.
We got birds in there.
Yeah.
It'd be no fun without women, would it?
Need birds in shag.
No, a few. Couldn't possibly say.
Who else? Oh, yeah. John Atkins. Yeah.
He could be the Eugene.
Or how about...
Who would you be then?
I don't know, I watched it this year actually. I'd be Jason from last year though, he was the man, wasn't he? Oh, no, he was the man, no arguing, he was cool.
You'd be Dean from Big Brother 2.
No, yeah. Linsky.
Maxwell's the man. He's the man. He was good. I saw him on Big Brother's little brother today actually, and he tipped a bottle of water over his head. He's just he's off the hook. He's off the hook.
It sounds hilarious. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the American Dragon. Okay, the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. The first thing I want to ask you actually is, what are you up to at the moment? Have you just arrived in England?
No, I've been in England since the middle of May, and I'm wrestling for Brian Dixon and All-Star Wrestling Promotions.
And they wrestle like pretty much every night, as far as I know at the moment. Sometimes a couple of shows a day. So how are you enjoying that sort of schedule?
Oh, I love it. That's why I come over here. I mean, the pay's not the best, but it's fun. So
sure, it's like a learning curve for you.
Not really. It's more just to come out and have fun. It's like a summer vacation, really.
So how long are you actually going to be over for?
Until September.
And then you're going back to the States?
Yes.
Okay, and while you're over here, I mean, are there people that you want to wrestle or have enjoyed wrestling?
Yeah, I really enjoy wrestling Robbie Brookside and Doug Williams when I have a chance. I haven't really gotten to wrestle those guys since I've been over here. I've been stuck wrestling Declan. So, but yeah, no, those are the kind of guys that I like to wrestle while I'm here. So.
Excellent. And I guess, let's go back in time a little bit. I want to ask you sort of how you got into wrestling as a whole, because I believe you were one of Shawn Michaels' students.
Yes.
And how did you kind of get involved with his training school?
Sean's deal was just like you just kind of have to sign up for it, really. Then you just sign up, you go down there, and the hardest part was that I live in Seattle, up here, and Texas is way down here, and so that was the hardest part of it, was just getting there. But then after that, it was what it was, So.
Sure, but why did you want to sign up? I mean, were you a fan as a child, or?
I was always a fan of wrestling, and I really did it because I didn't want to go to college. So then I just said, I'll try wrestling, and if it doesn't work out, then I can go to school. So luckily, it's worked out a little bit.
Are you able to make like a full-time living at the moment?
Oh yeah, I do okay for myself. So.
Actually, just out of interest, have you ever had like another job, a full-time job?
Yeah, I was with the WWF under a developmental deal from 2000 until mid-2001, and then after that I got a job and started going to college a little bit, but then I got pulled back into it, so I've been wrestling full-time since 2002 then, and I haven't had to have a job since.
Sure, I was going to ask actually a little bit about the ties I would assume you must have with the WWE. I mean, does your kind of association with Shawn Michaels hold any water, as it were?
I talk to Sean when I go up there, and but I don't call him or anything. He told me a while ago if I ever wanted a job, he'd just pull for me and whatnot. At the moment, I just kind of enjoy doing what I'm doing, so that's that.
Excellent. And I mean, is that like a long-term ambition of yours, maybe, to get into the WWE, or do you just enjoy what you're doing?
I don't know at this point in time what I'm actually going to be doing in the future, so I'm keeping things open, really.
When you say you don't know what you're going to be doing in the future, do you mean wrestling-wise or life-wise? Because I did read, I think was it back in May, on the Ring of Honor website, about you were considering, maybe getting out of wrestling for a bit to reevaluate things?
I'm not really interested in getting out of wrestling per se, but I'd like to do something else. Like I have ambitions of joining the Peace Corps, but the thing with the Peace Corps is they won't just take anybody. So when I applied for the Peace Corps last year, they wouldn't let me in because I'm not smart enough. So I need to learn a second language or have some sort of educational skills before you can go do something like that.
Cool, that certainly sounds like a pretty worthy, ambition. I want to ask you about some other people that you've trained with, actually. According to the information I got from your website, it says people like William Regal and Tracy Smothers have had a hand in sort of rearing you as a wrestler. Yeah,
I have actually more ties with William Regal right now than I do with Shawn Michaels, and that's not just to say that I like him or anything like that, but we actually talk on the phone a bit and whatnot, and he, like when I started with Shawn, I was just learning the basic stuff, and then when I got to train with Regal, that was when I really started to pick more stuff up, and so I still talk to him and everything. And Tracy Smothers, he came in after Regal, and he was only there for a short time because he had some political differences with the guy who was running the territory at the time. So I haven't seen him in probably 3 years.
Sure, and actually, just talking of Tracy Smothers, I just want to get your thoughts maybe on the recent ECW pay-per-view, if you saw it. I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it? Okay, well, we won't go there then. I want to ask you quickly, actually, about people you've sort of wrestled against. You know, what have been your favourite matches or your favourite people to wrestle against?
Okay, my favorite match I've ever wrestled was against Robbie Brookside in Germany about 2 years ago for the Hanover tournament. I really enjoy wrestling Spanky. I've always enjoyed wrestling Low Key and Samoa Joe, and there are just some random unknown guys that a lot of people don't know about that I've just enjoyed wrestling. I've enjoyed wrestling a guy named Scott Lost in Los Angeles. I've enjoyed wrestling a guy named Scotty Mack in Vancouver, Canada. There are tons of good guys all over the place that nobody really knows about that are fun to wrestle and are good guys. So.
Sure, and what about people you would, in a dream scenario, someone you would love to wrestle either against or with, maybe?
I don't really have that many dream matches in my head anymore, because I find when you wrestle guys that, you've always put on a pedestal like this, when you actually wrestle them, it's not as impressive as you'd think. I'd love to wrestle some of the old British guys, actually, because every time I wrestled Drew McDonald and was amazed. I wrestled Robbie and was amazed.
Was that on All Stars?
Yeah, both those guys were for All Star. I'd love to wrestle Steve Gray at some point, in some sort of rounds match or something like that, because those guys are all so good. But the Japanese guys, I wrestled a lot of those guys. Yuji Nagata's amazing. Koji Kanemoto's amazing. Liger's really good, so all that kind of stuff. But there aren't really many dream matches left for me that I really put up there. So.
Sure. And what about, you mentioned sort of Hanover, Germany and Japan as well. So, is travelling something you really kind of enjoy about wrestling?
I hate traveling, actually. I actually love, this is, being in England is cool for me, because it's not traveling in the United States sucks, because I live over here, which is West Coast, and all the stuff I do is kind of over here and down here and over here. So everywhere I go, I have to fly out, and just flying sucks. I don't mind driving. For All Star, we drive quite a bit throughout the week, but it's only 3-4 hours at a time, and to me that's not too bad. Those plane journeys are a 6-hour trip over here, plus you have to be there 2 hours early and somebody picking you up and that sort of thing. So but I like living in different countries, because then you can get a feel for the whole country. Same with Japan. I like being there when I was there for 6 weeks. It was awesome.
Sure. Can I ask you a bit about your appearances, or your appearance tonight and your previous appearances for the FWA? The last time we saw you that I can remember, or actually the first time we saw you when you wrestled Doug Williams, you were wearing your mask, and I was just wondering, if there's a story behind the mask, or if you enjoy wearing it or don't like it, or what? I
actually started wearing the mask when I started wrestling, because Sean said that I look too bland, and but then I went to then Sean had me take it off because he liked my facial expressions. Then I went to Memphis when I got my developmental deal, and they said, "You're too bland again, so we'll put it back on you." Then they liked my facial expressions, so they took it off. Then I came over to England, and Brian wanted a character for the Butland shows, because that's for little kids and stuff, right? A mask guy is more impressive than me, obviously, and so I wore the mask. And then I don't wear it really anywhere else except for here, and I started wearing it again when I shaved my beard. And I was tempted to wear it today just to be a smartass, but I decided against it.
Sure. And actually, that reminds me, I want to ask you about the beard as well a little bit, because the last time I saw you, it was in Croydon a couple of weeks when you had quite a large beard, and I just wondered if there was a story behind that, and behind why you shaved it as well.
The story for me actually growing the beard is this. I had came back from Japan, and I had left my razor in the hotel. And razors, I don't know as many gentlemen know, are $10 American, which is extravagant. And so I just thought, I'll buy a razor tomorrow, That turned into 3 weeks, and then I went back to Japan. And then the Japanese people said, "Oh, we really like your beard. Keep growing it." Okay, you don't have to ask me twice. So I just kept growing it. I kind of got rather fond of it. Then it just got to be a hassle, really. I didn't grow it to grow a beard. I just grew it just 'cause. And when I shaved it, it was really just 'cause. like food would get stuck in it, and it became a hassle. And so then I just got up one morning. I asked Frankie Sloan. I said, "What do you think? Should I shave it?" He said, "Yeah, the beard looks awful. You should shave it." I said, "Why didn't you tell me that a couple weeks ago?" You know. And so anyway, so then I just shaved it.
Okay. Can I ask you now about some of the sort of titles and tournaments that you've won over your career? A couple of years back, you won, I believe, the King of Indies.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that sort of weekend?
Yeah, that was really just a big mistake. Going into terms of what should and shouldn't happen, that wasn't supposed to happen. So, remarkably enough, I don't remember much of it. That was where I really got to know Chris Daniels for the first time, and Scoot Andrews, and some funny things happened, like things that I can't tell the general public because it would, it's just not right. But anyways, but yeah, I don't really remember much of the wrestling. That was the first time I wrestled Doug, actually, and I remember that going really well. But I only saw it on video once, and I don't really remember it overly well.
And I know you've won like a couple of other titles in your career, and I wonder as a wrestler how much they kind of mean to you.
I can't remember the last title I won, actually. I win very few titles. They don't mean overly much to me. The actual one, the last one I got, I think, was in New Japan, which was the IWGP Junior Tag titles. And that was kind of cool because I was the youngest guy to ever win a IWGP title of any sort. But they didn't acknowledge that because I'm not Japanese, so...
Actually, you say about wrestling in Japan a lot, and I always wonder when the sort of American and the English guys go over there, how you get past the language barrier, if that's like a big deal for you.
In the general population, it's not a big deal. When you're wrestling the guys, you're more or less just kind of fighting each other, so it doesn't really bear much difference there. But yeah, no, most Japanese people are like everywhere else. Everything's starting to get English immigrated, kind of. So like even when you go to Germany, if you can't speak German, you can still get around by just speaking English. So
cool. And can I ask you as well? Well, tonight you're here for the FWA again, and you're wrestling the Zebra Kid. Have you sort of wrestled him before? I'm not sure that you have.
No, I've actually only met him a couple times. But I'm looking forward to it because I think Samoa Joe wrestled him a while ago, and Joe said he was real good, so I'm looking forward to it. He said he hits real hard, and so that's right up my alley. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a cracking contest. I want to ask the fans here this afternoon if any of you people have questions for the American Dragon while he's here. Yeah.
You mentioned the King of Indies back in 2001.
Yes.
I remember seeing that myself, and I noticed during the tournament you suffered a knee injury, but you went all the way through to the end and won the tournament. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel great now. I don't know if that's the question.
Yeah, well, actually, I guess just to rescue that a little bit, what are like the worst injuries that you've suffered while wrestling?
Like I've had quite a few concussions. The problem with concussions is that you have one concussion, then it's easier to get a second concussion. So a lot of wrestlers have had concussions, and then you get multiple concussions after that. And so the concussions thing has been a problem. And then I've had various just knee injuries, and I was actually worried I wasn't going to be able to wrestle here because last Thursday I had a really bad back injury. And so, but I mean, like, it's just part of wrestling, really. It's part of any sport.
Sure, it's something you come to expect, I guess, it comes with the territory.
Yeah. And if you keep yourself in good shape and stretching and stuff like that, they tend to not happen as often, so. Sure.
I mean, have you ever suffered like a major injury kind of during a match and maybe been unable to continue?
I've never been unable to continue. Unless you're seriously paralyzed, I can't think of anybody who's... I can't think of many situations where you'd really be unable to continue. Like, you should always finish what you start, really. Like, that said, I'll probably go out and get hurt tonight. Yeah. But, like, most times you see guys finish what they start, so.
Great. Okay, any more questions for Brian? Great. Okay. Well, in that case, Brian, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I want to wish you good luck, and thank you very much, the American Dragon. Please give it up for your FWA British Heavyweight Champion, the show stealer, Alex Shane. Alex, you're looking well. Nice to see you.
According to the pikey sitting there.
So, Alex, how are you feeling at the moment?
Yeah, not bad at all. Actually, last time I was here, it was with Jonny Storm cutting vicious promos on him, but I'm not in the mood to do that now. I thought I'd be a bit more laid back and nice. It seems like a nice day. So
yeah, it does, and you're looking pretty tanned, actually, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's pretty much all I have got there. So tonight. Yeah, well.
So let's go with some questions.
Okay, well, Alex, tonight you haven't got a set opponent as far as I know. You are waiting to see the winner of the Battle Royal, and then they will face you in a non-title shot. Is there anyone you would particularly like or not like to see win that Rumble?
I'd like to see JC Thunder win that Rumble, particularly this evening, because I beat him in 60 seconds at Morecambe, and I've been told through the powers of psychic medium who I am going to be facing tonight, and I've got a feeling that I'm in for a bit of a rough time. So
yeah, well, we'll wait and see. Then we'll be here tonight.
You're old enough to know. Come on.
Fine.
And don't put that on Online Plus.
Okay, Alex, let's move away from tonight's show then. I want to ask you a little bit about Universal Uproar, which you're behind that, aren't you?
Yes.
And how are the preparations for that show going?
It's pretty nerve-wracking, actually. I'm dealing with my business partners in this aren't the wrestling channel this time around. It's the London Expo, and the London Expo people. What's interesting about it is they've not got any. Funny story. They phoned me because the next expo they've got coming up is in October. Bless you. And the next expo is coming up in October, and they said to me, "Oh, we've got some wrestlers that we've been offered," and the guys know nothing about wrestling, so they said, "Could any of these names mean anything to you?" So I was like, well, tell me and I'll let you know. So he said Chris Jericho, and I was like, pretty much, yeah, pretty much. He's like, The Undertaker, and I said, you've not heard of The Undertaker? He said, no, what's he do? I said, well, it's The Undertaker.
He carries them alive.
He does it, and well, the next one was Kamala, which I found really strange. But yeah, and then it was like a load of TNA people and stuff, and then there was some more WWE people, and he phoned me up the other day and said, oh, for this show in October, I've just been offered a tag team called the Dudley Boys, and I was like, the Dudley Boys, because they've been fired, obviously. So we're working on something there. May not be for Uproar, but it's interesting because what they see, they looked at the Super Show, which as a wrestling fan in this country I thought was a really impressive looking show, and they went, yeah, it's all right really, but the production's not very good. And so what they're doing is they're really upping the show content of the event itself, and some of the stuff. I mean, to give you an idea, the lighting rig for the Super Show last time had 12 lights on the lighting rig, right? This time around there's 52 lights on the lighting rig, so it's just silly things. As an event promotion, it's really going to be a big show. The convention itself is in a club that's capacity is over 3 times bigger than Jumping Jacks. The after show party has got, the after show, we're actually opening the after show to fans. There's a VIP section for the wrestlers, but like the after show is going to be absolutely massive. It's in a club that holds like 3,500 people, and it's just it's going to be a real big event. So I think what's really interesting in working with people that are not wrestling fans is that the way they see it is it has to be an event, it has to be a super show, it can't just be like an FWA show on steroids, so to speak, and so they really want to up the content of the show, and I think it's really exciting. There's a lot of things going to be announced in the next couple of weeks, not so much to do with just, there's a few names I know that we have that are really going to make people happy, but the one thing that the Expo have done is they've made me sign everybody to cast iron contracts, and there was something on the internet that I really wanted to go and post on the forum, but I'm not allowed to as well. That's another thing but basically people were speculating that Matt Hardy might not appear in case he goes back to WWE, but we've signed him to such a cast iron contract, unless he dies there's no way for him to get out of that contract, which I really hope that obviously didn't mean that I wanted that to happen, but even if he was injured he'd have to show up and make an appearance. So basically the way it kind of works now is everybody's signed to cast iron contracts, whereas I know there's certain other super shows taking place that aren't signed to cast iron contracts, and that's basically what separates us now from the super show back then, because everything is now really really professional.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but there are like a couple of other super shows that are sort of springing up all over the place. I wonder what your thoughts are about that.
Imitation's a serious form of flattery. The reason I say that actually is because it's imitated even down to the fact. I mean, this is, actually, I've spoken to the guy, and the guy's cool. It's just a little bit. I've basically FWA is now, that was my living for a while, and now it's a super show promotion. So obviously it affects me personally if someone's basically doing the same kind of concept. It's imitation even down to the fact that there's a gold ringside dark match, which is I was the first person to do that. Gold ringside tickets, I was the first person to do that, and those kind of prices as well. And that concept, and I've got the mailing list from the last super show, and the guys was at the show because I've got his name and address on the mailing list. So I mean, but in all fairness, you can't sit there and just expect it not to happen. It was a successful show. People are going to look at that and want to be a part of that kind of success and stuff. So what it's inspired me to do is become a lot more professional. And some of the announcements I'm talking about that happen in the next couple of weeks are more to do with the professionalism side of these events. I can't really go into it now, but there's a lot of stuff happening backstage as we speak with my business partners, basically dealing with contracts and that kind of stuff. And I think the next couple of weeks there's going to be some big announcements regarding the people behind this uproar event.
Sure. I mean, what I meant, I guess, when I said about the other shows coming up and how obviously you can't expect that not to happen. But I guess the problem is, I mean, maybe people don't realise this, but you've got, a lifetime of experience behind the scenes here at the FWA, promoting shows, doing the TWC International Showdown, whereas some of the guys just seem to be kind of jumping on the bandwagon, maybe without so much experience. Yeah. If these shows don't happen, do you think that might reflect badly on you?
No, I guess. I mean, to be honest, I'd be a hypocrite to say that because I'm sure there were a lot of people, and there are a lot of people that when I promote shows go, "Who's this kid doing wrestling events?" And I've had that lots of times. And to be honest, I'm all for a border control and a governing body to give out promoters licenses. But I'm well aware of the fact that if there was one set in place when I first got into wrestling, I wouldn't be a promoter now. But that's by the by. I think it would be. I actually, the guy's technically competition. I shouldn't say it, but I do believe his show's going to take place. I spoke to the guy. He's a clued up person. He's clued up as a businessman, not as a wrestling promoter. I know for a fact that certain prices, certain wrestlers are being paid 3 times more than they're getting paid for our show. Which I said to him, I actually want to help him. I actually want to help him out and get his cost cheaper, because if he pays Matt Hardy 3 times what I'm paying him, then obviously a lot of these people are going to come back and go, well, I got paid that much for that show, and it's actually screwing up the market because it will stop the Americans coming over for smaller promoters, and that's not out of a big business plan. That's actually just out of naivety. If you say to a wrestler, how much do you want? It's my first show, blah blah blah. Of course, a wrestler's going to come back and say, well, I want like $10,000. So I mean, and some of the people have said ridiculous figures and stuff. There's one guy who we used recently at Morecambe, who I know for a fact is getting just under 6 times for this one show that what he got paid at Morecambe, which really sets the bar pretty high, and it will eventually screw things up if it's not kind of regulated. So sure. I've offered my help, whether or not I get that. I kind of wonder. I mean, you're obviously talking about someone in particular, but on the internet, I've read of at least 2 other shows that are happening or scheduled to happen that claim to be super shows. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen though, isn't it? The problem is with these kind of shows, I think, is we should move on from this because it's quite mundane. But I mean, the problem is with these kind of shows that if you're doing people start the arse end up, particularly in wrestling. What the biggest example is Wrestle Express. You need to learn to walk before you can do an Olympic sprint, and these people don't even try running first. It's like it's straight into the 100 metres, I think. And you can't. If your first show is a super show, of course you're going to fail. I tell you, I learnt more on that super show. I'll give you an example, right? When we did the Super Show, I went in on the venue. Things it might be interesting. Some people might not be. I went in on a percentage deal with the venue. Right now, what that meant is they got paid a lower fee, but they got a percentage of the tickets. Now, the Wrestling Channel gave out a bucket load of comps to people that they shouldn't have given comps to. Like, for example, the Hardcore Fan Club, who, if they're hardcore fans, they will pay for tickets. And when you're trying to make the show make money, we had some problems with that. But also, a lot of tickets that they put on sale, but then took off sale, they binned, but they threw the tickets away. But the way it worked with the venue, and I only found this out because the Expo reread the contract, was that every single ticket that got printed off by the venue, they took a percentage for those tickets. So basically, we lost money from tickets that actually ended up in a dustbin. that ultimately meant thousands of pounds of lost revenue. Now, that's something as a promoter of X amount of years I should have known, but I've not dealt with arenas before. So for me to learn this kind of stuff now, and also security as well. I mean, the security went over by £2,000. That's a budget for 2 British shows roughly. Do you know what I mean? You know, so things like that, you learn this kind of stuff as you go on. So it scared. I mean, the guy would be lying if he said I didn't do this. I phoned him up and I sat down. You know, I was on the phone to the guy that's promoting 1PW for an hour, and I told him ways to actually lessen his costs and maximise his profits, because I said there's no reason we can't work together. The only reason we had a bit of falling out is he said to me, I'm not going to announce any more talent and it won't infringe on your show. And then like 2 weeks later, 2 of the guys I told him I wanted to bring in, he'd announced, and that's why I was a little bit, you know, but it's cool. I mean, I generally believe there was no malice in it. I think it was naivety, but if you can't be naive if you're trying to run a successful wrestling company.
Sure. So what do you want to talk about now? I mean, maybe the London Expo or wrestling at the moment?
Well, it's up to you.
Okay, well, I guess at the moment you're kind of gaining notoriety around England for winning several championships. And, have you got any more, you know, in your sights? Anything you're kind of gunning for now?
Well, that's the problem is, I guess in England there's not many. The WAW belt meant something, I think, definitely, but there's not many belts that really generally mean anything. I do the list of obviously the list of titles when I wrestle. The idea is at some point maybe Steve Corino's going to come back, and that'll be quite, you know, that's where that comes from. But I always had the OPWA title because it was a belt run in front of 26 people, and a lot of those were wrestlers that were on the show, you know. Yeah. But it's crazy. I mean, it is bad because there's not many titles that mean anything. But I think someone actually said this, and actually the guy that said this, I respect him for saying it because he was one of my bigger critics actually, said that it was a good idea to put all those belts on one person because it actually means a little bit more if you can combine and make a title. The only problem is so many people have so many different views on how wrestling should be in this country, and I mean, like, I have my own view, but I know it's so far out of whack of what other people think, and I don't even think that I'm right. I think there's still someone, you need someone as an outsider to come along and say, I think what he's saying, because for us to make wrestling work, we need to appeal to people that aren't wrestling fans now, because wrestling fans will always go to a show because they're wrestling fans. You need to get someone who's not a wrestling fan to come along and go, actually, we need a bit of this and a bit of that, and I think between all our different ideas, something will come together. But I do think having a recognised title, or a couple of recognised titles, is a really sensible idea, and so I think if one guy has all the belts and stuff, it just happened. It's just me at the moment. But I think what it is, a lot of people have got on the bandwagon and thought we'll give him the belt as well. But I think it'd be really good, and eventually it'd be nice to combine those and make one.
Yeah, some sort of unification.
But so many people, as I was saying, have so many different ideas. I don't think that would ever work because eventually the way it would come around is promotion X would want their top guy to win it, whereas promotion Y would want to give it to their top guy, and you just would need. It couldn't be a democracy. It would have to be a bit of a Nazi regime in the wrestling sense, because you'd have to have someone say, no, this is the person and look at the NWA. I mean, they tried that, and the NWA is a big farce now because they all wanted different. Obviously you want your own regional promotion, your own regional star to have the belt. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work unless someone takes the higher ground and says, right, this is who's going to get the belt. And that's.
Yeah, sure. Has anyone got any questions for Alex while we're here? Yeah, go for it.
Alex, mention about your main event match tonight. Personally, who do you want to face out those 10 in the Battle Royal?
Joey Legend would be interesting, actually. I wrestled him recently on one of the FWA tour shows, and I was actually really hesitant going in there because of the size difference. And I was thinking about how many of my bigger moves I could pull off on someone so big, because he's a big guy. But it was it was a real competitive match, I think, and he's someone who I've got a lot of respect for. His style was quite different as well to a lot of the other guys I wrestle here. So yeah, he'd be definitely.
How does he compare size-wise to you, actually?
He's big. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I may be taller by maybe a fraction of an inch, but he's very meaty, and he's difficult to. It's. I mean, a lot. Obviously, some of you might have seen Secrets of Wrestling Revealed or whatever. But despite what they say in those things, you can't pick somebody up. Of any size, you try slamming the pit bull, one of the pit bulls, it just doesn't happen. And so I mean, he's a big guy, and he was. I really enjoyed the match. Actually, it was something different for me.
Yeah, actually, while you're on the subject, I want to ask you a bit about the tour. I mean, were you on every night of that tour?
Yeah, definitely.
Did you enjoy that?
I really enjoyed it, actually. Apart from, I had this. Do you know what? It's kind of the equivalent of being run over. But if you got hit by a car, you wouldn't want it to be a Skoda or a milk float, would you? And that's kind of how it was. I got an injury the first night, and it was a severely bruised left arse cheek, right, which was the worst because you get no sympathy, but unfortunately it was really painful. And I did it. This is the worst thing. I came to the ring. I spat water, as I, not Triple H style. It's before I got on the apron. Spat water. I got clotheslined over the top rope later, and as I landed on my feet, I slipped on my own water and landed full force on my arse. And it was really sore, really sore for the rest of the tour. And but yeah, I mean, it was a real enjoyable tour. To be honest, I mean, I'm not, I definitely know my limitations as a wrestler, and I think every time I would go in there with somebody different, I obviously, I find what happens is I was in there's definitely a thing that I've noticed in wrestling where you have a false wrestler confidence, and what I mean by that is because there is no governing body, or there is no kind of person to stand up and say you're not as good as you think you are, blah blah blah. You get a false wrestler confidence. So when I left Hammerlock for about 4 years, because I was pushed as a main event in a company that didn't mean anything, I was 19 and really pretty cocky and arrogant. I generally thought that was, I thought, I must be that good. And and you hear a lot of the older guys saying, oh, you don't want to do this, and you don't want to do that, and you think, whatever, just because you can't do it. But then you realise, actually, no, you don't. Because I say that to people now, and I'm thinking, God, I'm 25, and I think what's happened is when we did Revival, and I saw myself back on TV, and I thought, boy, that's bad. So I took a year off due to injury, and I really did I wanted to relearn from scratch. And I think wrestling, when you're in there with someone, when you're wrestling somebody who you're the more experienced person, then I think it betters you in some ways, but it's really good to learn. And I've learned so much wrestling. Even people like Raven and doing that little bit with Mick Foley, when you go in doing toe to toe with someone like Mick Foley and doing a promo, and people have said, oh, Alex's talking's good, but compared to someone like him, I'm dwarfed in comparison just in terms of presence, and it's I think that's so you learn so much when you're in there with someone like that. It's and I think that false confidence or false arrogance, or just arrogance that was false confidence, I think that I had a couple of years ago, is definitely, it manifests itself now, and I've really got an ability to just switch off and learn. And I always say now, what did I do? Can I improve? So I feel like that, and it makes it a lot more fun. It doesn't make it. I think when you're trying to protect yourself in a certain way from looking a certain way, you don't have as much fun because you're always constantly worried about it. Whereas now it's just so I definitely find it. And the bad thing is actually the promotion side actually earns me enough money for me to want to retire from wrestling at 30 and just do. And the sad thing is, like, if I do retire at wrestling at 30, I think I'll probably be my best round about that time. Did two chavs just
I've been walking around Broxbourne in their funny yellow trail.
Really? So in full outfit?
Yeah.
Bless them. But yeah, so like it's so yeah, that's it.
And what about wrestling like a full-time schedule? I mean, that was like 6 matches in 7 nights or something.
It was 8 matches. It was because I did WAW at the start, so I think it was 8, and some of them were double headers as well. So I think it was like 8 matches in 8 days, or no, 9 matches in 8 days. And to be honest, that's the other thing. Like, I'd hate wrestling a full-time. That's the difference between a good wrestler and a good entertainer. I think is a good wrestler can actually go out there and do it every single night. Do you know what I mean? And I really couldn't. Do you know what I mean? I can for a short period, but it took me the same amount of time to recover than it did to actually do that. So I took like a week of just, I've got a chiropractor appointment tomorrow, and at the moment I'm spending, it's £35. I get a discount, £105 a week on a chiropractor, not because of that tour, but just because of bumps and knocks and stuff. So basically it's, I think that's a real, that's the way I see it. Is what was the question? Sorry.
I don't know. So going back to the TWC show, actually, I mean, you said you went toe to toe with Foley in the ring. You wrestled Raven in front of sort of 3,500 people, and again, you were like kind of the person who was like basically responsible for getting that show together. Was that like a real kind of career highlight for you that whole day? It's weird. It actually made my eyes water just before I went through, but only because I looked out and I didn't realise how. I'm so glad I've got the one thing that I'll always be happy I got was the cameraman coming out behind me. If you've seen the DVD extras, he comes out and over my shoulder pans the audience, and it was just weird to see that in Britain because of all the criticism, because of all the fucking naysayers and blah blah blah. It was just to see that many people at £75 a ticket as well, like the front rows and stuff, and it was just like, whoa. I mean, it generally made my eyes water. And I like Nikita, who, I mean, obviously we broke up and stuff, but she's probably one of my best friends, and I just said I can't believe, it was like a bit overwhelming. And the thing that's really weird about it though is that, like, the one thing that really upsets me about wrestling in general actually is that actually I'm in the process of Nikita is just
doing short films. She left wrestling for a bit to do a bit of acting. She still does a bit of wrestling, but she's doing more wrestling than she did before, but not FWA wise. Does that make sense? Like, she's dropped out of FWA for the time being because she wants to focus on films, and she's just done her first short film. And she's speaking to me about doing a film about wrestling, and she said to me she wanted to make it like, you know, quite funny and light-hearted. And I generally think to do it, I said I'll be involved if we can make it a bit of a tragedy, because I generally don't think wrestling in this country, it can be fun and light-hearted, but it's really quite sad as well. Do you know what I mean? It's, you know, because all of us have been on these shows like Revival, where you go out there and you think, you know what, if it was like this every night, that would really be good. And then the next night you're in front of 100 people and you just think it's so inconsistent. And the amount of times, like the amount of guys, I'm only 25, and now the amount of times like the Wrestle Expresses and the UWAs and the UCWs, and you just think, fuck, like it's never, you know, it's weird. There's something going on at the moment to do with signing guys to contracts backstage, which I can't really go into too much, but you know, it's the same thing. It's like some of the guys that are new are like, and some of the guys that have been around for a while, even like Jonny Storm is still young, but you know, it's again, is this going to be another, you know, it can be quite disheartening in this country. And I think that for one night everybody went out, had a really good time, really felt like part of something, but then the next day it's back to normal. And I'd love it to get to a point where it's not. Do you know what? I've actually totally turned my views on one thing. I think FWA needs to be a total alternative to WWE. I really think, you know, the way I see it now, it needs to be, basically, for those of you who don't know, Doug Williams is responsible for a lot of stuff now, because he really is British through and through. And I think what I said to him before, the game plan was always to use the internet and the smart fans to basically, and I say use, it sounds like a harsh, sorry, how are you doing? I'll hurry it up. But basically, to get the internet fans to basically buy those expensive tickets and stuff, so that we could fund the company and basically buy like a lighting rig and buy the cameras and buy that kind of stuff. But eventually, we need to become kind of like, you know, we do need to become our own identity. And the thing that happened, the TV, I think people read that statement that went out on the. Did anyone read that on the internet about the statement about FWA? And basically, it sounded a little bit harsh towards the wrestling channel, but what it was we weren't blaming the wrestling channel for making attendances drop. Basically what happened was, when you get given TV and it's weekly TV, nobody in this country has had experience in like God knows how many years of doing a weekly TV show, and the audience that the wrestling channel attracts is not your World of Sport audience. It really is like generally WWE fans and stuff. So we had to try and make a weekly kind of, almost like a sitcom type, well not a sitcom, but do you know what I mean, like a drama story. And what happened is, whereas before FWA, when it was just about live shows, if wrestler A and wrestler B have a great match, you just book that match and that sells tickets, and then the rematch will sell more. But when you're doing a TV show, for a wrestler A to get to wrestler B, he has to go through C, D and E to make gripping TV, but C, D and E might not be the best matches. So basically we prostituted doing better shows for a consistent TV products, and it basically ended up screwing things up, because I'm an FWA fan, and I found a TV show quite unwatchable because it was just recap after recap, and I was responsible for a lot of it, because I was just thinking, well, you know, what are we, I don't know what to do. You know, if the TV show wasn't making money, we were losing money on the TV show. But that's the thing, it was a real slap in the face for me, because anyone that knows about me, I've worked so hard to try and get it on TV, and then we finally get it on TV on a wrestling channel, no less, and it loses us money. And I think I was in shock. I'd gone into kind of autopilot, and I'm like, well, if we just keep doing it, eventually it's going to make us money. And they're like, no, we've just lost like 10 grand over the last, you know, X amount of months. And I was like, okay, well maybe we'll just change the format. And in the end we realised the format is to go back to what we do best, and that's try and put on the best live shows that we can. But it's not going to be, what I want to try and do eventually as well is try and get away from the you fucked up and holy shits and stuff, because as much as, you know, I've encouraged that because the kind of product we were doing, I don't mean get away from that kind of wrestling that makes you want to say that, but you know, it's so hard to go to a TV channel, a proper TV channel, and get them to take your product when your audience are chanting, when there's a 30-year-old chanting you fucked up next to someone who's 12. Do you know what I mean? It's really, you know, and even my parents have come to shows and they get a bit icky about that. And I think, you know, so it's a little bit like tonight there's probably going to be a couple of matches, I'm probably going to be involved in one, which is a match that you couldn't really put on TV. But I think that's, you know, it's but in saying that, I generally think that there is a place for it, but you've just got to be, when you can't censor the audience, that's what I'm saying. You can censor what matches go on your TV show, but you can't censor your audience. And if you're encouraging your audience to be kind of quite scary, and to be honest, like, you know, I don't see anyone in the room that I find particularly scary, well, one or two, but that I find particularly scary. But to someone who comes in from the outside and you're hearing those kind of chants and stuff, it does really really put you off. So I think it's, you know, my views on it have changed a little bit, and I think we need to give, you know, I've always said for FWA to work, it needs to be a product that we're proud to have in Britain. You know what I mean? There's a lot of companies around that you're not proud to be a fan of that. You know, you're a little bit embarrassed. And like my girlfriend's here today, and she's brought a friend of hers from work who's actually a little bit of a wrestling fan, but she's actually proud of, because she's come to some shows here. So I'll come down to it. You'll really like it, you know. And it's good when someone who's a non-wrestling fan. Like I've decided to go for a girl that's a non-wrestling fan simply because after dating ones who are involved in the wrestling business, I couldn't afford the psychotherapy I needed to recover from it. So basically now just I thought, right, you know, and the fact that she's a non-wrestling person, but she comes to the shows and she can appreciate it. That's what we need, and it's to get that holy grail, which is the casual fan.
Sure.
So I don't know why I agreed to a deal on a wrestling channel, which is never going to get casual fans. But
Alex, I'm going to have to wrap it up here. Sorry, but thank you so much. That's great stuff. Thanks. See you later. Good luck. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Robbie Brookside. Okay, Robbie, firstly, I want to ask you, and it's great to see you back here in the FWA. We haven't seen you, I believe, since New Frontiers in Walthamstow, which was 2003. Yeah, the Zebra Kid for the XPW title tournament. I want to ask you, you know, what has sort of led to your absence from the FWA for the last 2 years or so?
There's no real reason. I come to a bit of a crossroads last year with, I've been working for Mr. Dixon again, and also we started our own company, European Wrestling Promotions, and I've got a girlfriend who's got two daughters, so it's like a full-time job. I'm going grey in the middle there, like, because it's just I'm getting picked on by two young girls. And that's it. There's been no specific reason why I haven't been here. I haven't been able to get it together with Dino and Alex, so it just hasn't happened. Like.
Sure. And now you're back. Is that a long-term deal? Do you know, or?
I never look at this job. You know, like I've had deals with other companies and whatever, and it doesn't really mean that much. I mean, I've wrestled at some good places, like the Crystal Palace show. I just heard Alex talking about it there. It was really nice to be on a British show in England where there was 3,000 people going off their head. But I hope so. I mean, it's one a month. I need 29 more to fill my calendar in, you know. And I think that's the reason, you know, because FWA just do one a month. I have to give obligations and commitments to other companies, and most of the time it corresponds and clashes, so I can't do nothing about it.
Yeah. Are you still wrestling pretty much a full-time schedule at the moment?
Yeah. Well, if Mr. Brian Dixon's watching this, obviously I'm not. Like, I'm getting married in August, and obviously you can do with a few coins in the bank and whatnot. And I've just been sat. I've been listening to Alex there for about 15 minutes talking about the inconsistencies of British wrestling, and not, you know, you try and do your best. And I am an English wrestler. I wrestle to an English style, and I've never shirked away from that. And I'm not bothered about what anyone thinks, says, or writes down. That's the way I am, and that's the way it always will be. But I come from a different time than what most of the lads on the bill here tonight. I can remember when British wrestling was great. I can remember legendary wrestlers that I was scared to look at. I wasn't. My first 2 years in the job, it was like I could safely say I learned as a human being. I was pretty much a decent upbringing in Liverpool, but it was hard. But I never learned so much in 2 years of my life than what I did with the likes of the Rollerball Roccos and the Fit Finleys and the Tony Sinclairs. And I mean, someone like Johnny Saint, you know, to have someone like him now flying with his style and whatever else. And it's great for me when I do watch the Wrestling Channel, and there's the likes of the Ring of Honor lads who are putting Johnny Saint moves in and whatnot. And from the lads who I speak to, it's a great compliment. So I think there is a chance, and it's refreshing to hear people talk about attracting a family audience, because that's the only way forward for this country, in the wrestling business in this country. And for the people who say that it can't be done, I beg to differ, but I do believe that it has to be done more professional and more consistent.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was going to say you're probably one of the only people in the country who are wrestling a full-time schedule. I mean, most kind of just weekends or a couple of nights.
Can't you tell the arms rest?
So, I mean, have you ever had, like an outside job or financial?
I had a record shop in Denmark in the 80s, and I used to live in Sittingbourne in Kent, and I had a double Anglian windows. I was knocking on these people's door and like old age pensioners and going, come on, you have this big smile on your face, and it was horrible. It was just awful trying to sell these things that the people didn't really need to the rest of their lives and whatnot. So that lasted about. I was still wrestling as well at the same time, but it's strange. I watched that Alan Hansen documentary about what do footballers do at the end of their careers, and my heart bled for Rio Ferdinand, because he's on 100 grand a week. What do you relax maybe, or spend your money or whatever? And I saw there was a wrestler called Mike Bennett who used to give me the runaround ever so much, but he became a very, very good friend. And Mike Bennett was a fella who when you met him, he never spoke to me for a week. I sat in the car with him, travelled round doing the Butlins and summer shows, never spoke to me for a week, and he was like more than a capable professional wrestler. And it was about my age, I was getting to the end of his 30s and early 40s, and he turned around, he said, what can I do? After when this is, and he knew it was coming to an end. What do I do after this? And it was heartbreaking, really. I think he's now a gamekeeper or something. I haven't saw him for a long time, but it does. It's coming into my mind now. I've got probably 20 years of working life left, and if I don't do this, what do I do? And I must admit, the last 2 years I haven't been really. I never push. I never send emails to companies going. And I should do. I've got some really good friends in WWE, and I could use that card. Yeah. But I don't like America. I never liked it there, so that's why I came back to Germany. But I would like to help. I've always liked to help the youngsters coming through, youngsters who've got a bit of attitude and are willing to learn and willing to keep the ears open. So that's what I surmise later on, maybe taking over a backstage thing or something like that. I'd like to keep my hat in the.
Yeah, can I ask you a little bit about America actually? Because I think it was back in about '97 you went out to WCW for a bit. Was that kind of through your connections with Steve or William Regal?
No, we saw a deal out with AAA, and then Art Barr died, and the peso got devalued, so it was like a double whammy to the head. So Regal was in Japan with Eddie and Art Barr, and then he met Conan in WCW, and then Conan had Pro Azteca, so they said, all right, get over here and you can do the 10-day tapings. I've got you on there. So yeah, fine, but it was like, if anyone knew the Liverpool lads, if anyone knew Doc Dean, it was just like having the worst younger brother in the world. He'd be late to the airport, he'd forget one boot, he'd have one knee pad and no soap, and it was just like having a young son. And he never had enough money to buy a ticket to get out to America. If this is not going to America, is it? Because customs could have me off. Sure. We get out. We had enough for one ticket, like a one-way ticket. Plus we had all our wrestling gear. So we just had to say that we were like we were going to Dean Malenko's wrestling school. So we get to America, and like obviously long hair and all that. Oh, here's two. We'll pull them over. So we mentioned that I was a sales rep, and the doc was a security guard. So next thing, he's going through all the things like that, and he picks some of the doc's tassels up like that, and everyone's just stopping like, what the hell's going on? We get in anyway, and after 2 days Kevin Sullivan pulled us and said, whatever it takes, I'll get you deals. So we used to wrestle. I don't know if anyone knows what the tapings, but they do in 10 days they do three lots of 4 tapings, and 7 lots of 3 tapings, 3 shows a day, and we hardly got a tape off. We were working constantly, and it was all looking very bright. And then we went to Japan, we'd done the Super J, and then I went to CWA, and it was then it all started going wrong, because like if I say I'm going to be there or I'm going to do it, I'll be there and I'll do it. And I promised Peter William, who was the promoter at the time for CWA, that I'd do the Hanover thing and Finlay was going to WCW. So it went pear-shaped, and the doc phoned me up. He said, look, we've got the starting date. So Peter William came to me and said, you did promise. So then I made a phone call to JJ Dillon, heard the few keyboards being tapped in. Yeah, no problem, come after Christmas. So the doc kept on going out there, and then we moved out after Christmas, and then it just... I'm not a fan, no, you know. I'm a fan still, but I'm not going to be sat on my arse in some little apartment in Peachtree City on a tea chest waiting for Eric Bischoff to make some mad decision. I had a girlfriend in Germany, and my life's more important than that. I wasn't a fan of WCW, and the doc fortunately had a girlfriend out there, so he stayed, and I came back. I was there for probably 3 months. The second time, we've been out there quite a lot, but I just couldn't handle it, and unfortunately Darren Regal, he was pretty sick at the time, and it was like his wife was having a go at me, and it was horrible times, and I'm just happy now that it's all...
Sure, it's just kind of bad luck, the wrong place.
It's a memory, you know, and I'm happy every time I see Darren. I'm pleased as punch, because there's so many times that lad nearly died, you know, and I'm not gonna, you know, there's so many different stories that I was involved in, and now when I see him, it's like talking to a normal person again, like.
Great. Okay, I think we're actually pretty much out of time, is that right?
Yeah, unless there's perhaps one.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say, if anyone's got a question or anything, they'll be happy to take some really quick ones. Yeah, go for it.
Will you tell us about your dark match you had at the start of the year with WWE?
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about, did you have a dark match when the WWE came to England?
I got paid for it. You know, it was another thing where there were certain individuals from England there that night who were just, it was like winning the lottery for them, and I look at it as going to see my friends, and it wasn't. It was in Manchester. That's when I got offered a deal last year, but I'm too old, you know, for WWE, and I look at myself in the mirror every day, and I say to myself, it's gone, the chance is gone, and whatever else. I'm not. You know, there are people who think that I'm like really bitter with life because I went to WCW and I never made it. But did you see? I could have stayed there and, you know, got my tongue out and done a bit of brown nosing and whatever else. But I'm not going to do that. You know, why? If I'm good enough to be offered a deal and to be given a green card, then I'm surely good enough to be putting on the shows, or to be told at least. So like, we get these jobs now because of Finlay, and technically I could take him up and Dave, but there's younger lads out there, and as regards that aspect of my career, it's long gone. I've got no ambitions or future thoughts about wrestling for WWE, but the money's very good, so it's a nice little earner, and the food's fantastic. The worst part about that, the one at Manchester, I've got like Darren Walsh is a very good friend, and Drew McDonald, and like WWE do the best catering in the world, and there was like a big mad, like it was like a big trifle pot of banoffee pie, double cream and proper bananas and all that. So like ding ding, they play like, come on Brookside, get to the ring, and like Thunder and Drew McDonald, because like we have little jokes about Big Daddy and Haystacks liking food. Ooh, like so they were like, we'll go and enjoy the match, and there's like all cream around the gobs and all that. So like for me, it wasn't a dark matter. It's just another day, another dollar for me. Like.
Sure. Okay. Well, that seems like a pretty good place to end it for the time being. Robbie, I could have spoke to you all day, but thank you very much for this. It's great. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce you top US independent wrestling star, Chris Hero. Hey, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Hero. Chris, you've just come up in the building. I'm not sure if you just stepped off a plane or if you've been here for a few days, maybe?
Actually, I got here yesterday. I flew from Philadelphia to Gatwick, and I had about a 90-hour delay on the plane. But everything's fine. I had a good night's rest, and I'm ready to go.
Good stuff. And tonight you're facing the Zebra Kid. I don't know if you've seen much of him at all.
I've seen very little, but I have heard many good things, so I'm really looking forward to the match.
Excellent. Now, obviously, I don't know if the fans will know, but this isn't your first time over to England. And in fact, the last time I saw you wrestle was for All-Star in Croydon. It was from last year at some point. And you wrestled the FWA's own, or former superstar, Paul Burchill. I was wondering if you would give your thoughts on wrestling Burchill, actually, while you're here.
I actually got to work quite a bit with Paul last year. I was over for All-Star for about 10 weeks. I went back and forth from Germany to England, and this is actually my 5th time to England now to wrestle. And Paul is actually one of the most talented guys I've been in the ring with. You all know, there's nothing I can really say that you don't know. He's very talented, and I really look forward to seeing him again, and possibly, I don't know, working with him in the States, who knows. But he's definitely a talented athlete.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask you about as well, because I've been looking on your internet website, and it says that you've wrestled for literally, I don't know, dozens of different organisations and promotions. And I was wondering, obviously you've made quite a name for yourself in the independent circuit, but Burchill has just gone, or has been signed by the WWE, or it's gone to OVW, their training camp. I was wondering, is that a goal that you've set for yourself?
Well, actually, the goal that I have is just to continue wrestling for a living. I've been pretty lucky the last 3 years or so, 3.5 years. Wrestling has been my only income. And it's really hard as an independent wrestler to make a living because, as you know, the wages aren't too good, you know what I mean? But actually, if you work hard enough and you get, right place, right time, things will go pretty well for you. And I've been really fortunate. I've been one of the lucky few to make a living off of wrestling. As far as WWE goes, I mean, it's everybody's dream to wrestle for WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it. And it gets a lot of criticism on the internet. A lot of people, if somebody signs a WWF contract, they go, oh, well, they sold out, yada, 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 because they have this view that, once you go to WWF, you have to change your style, whatever. However, the bottom line is the people that are under contract at WWF are making a living wrestling. They get a constant paycheck. They get, health insurance, something a lot of people in the independent scene don't have. But, what I'm doing right now, I'm very happy. I'm very content with what I'm doing. I train full-time at the Chikara Wrestle Factory in Allentown, Pennsylvania, alongside Mike Quackenbush and Skyda of the Torreon School in Mexico. And I wrestle, 2 to 3 times a week. I travel all across the United States. I travel to Europe, and I'm here in England. So, I really couldn't be happier with what I'm doing right now. I just want to continue learning and becoming a better wrestler.
Excellent. So is that why you've been, as you said, all around Europe? This is what, your 2nd or 3rd time over here?
5th time.
5th time.
5th time.
5th time. And obviously you've been all over the United States, not just in one sort of town. So presumably that is to, I don't know why. I mean, why travelling? Is it to broaden your experience?
Actually, if you talk to any experienced wrestler, they'll tell you that to become a better wrestler, you need to travel and you need experience. You need to wrestle this guy and this guy and this guy in front of this crowd and this crowd. So I've been fortunate. Actually, I've wrestled in 10 different countries now, so no matter where I've been, I've learned something different. Whether it's, getting to do a small 2-week tour of Big Japan and working in front of those fans, or, doing one show in France or one show in Belgium, I learn a little bit everywhere I go, and it's really just a goal of mine to continue to branch out as much as possible, wrestle, as many different countries and many different opponents, and, all over. It's just, I really enjoy what I do, and, I'm really lucky that I get to do it.
Yeah, and you've kind of made, I would say, a bit of a name for yourself as wrestling actually a predominantly British style. Is that fair to say?
Somewhat, yeah. I believe, let's see, around 5 years ago or so, was the first time I saw a Johnny Saint match, as I'm sure you guys know who that is, or most of you at least. And it was actually one of his shows in Japan, his last tour of Michinoku. And I just was really, really fascinated with his style. I'd seen Finlay and Regal, Dave Taylor, all those guys before, but I never really got that big of a dose of British wrestling. And once I saw it, I was like, wow, I need to see more, And needless to say, it's very hard in the States to get footage of old British wrestling. So I actually had a student of mine, some of you may know him, some of you may not. He's from Switzerland. He now lives in the United States. His name's Claudio Castagnoli. He wrestled the FWA against Doug Williams as Double C.
Double C, yeah, we know.
There you go. He actually ordered about, I don't know, half a dozen videos from the UK, dubbed copies for me, and then I had them sent to somebody who transferred them to NTSC format, which is a pain in the ass. Nonetheless, the tapes were very good, and I got to see footage of, Johnny Saint, Jim Breaks, who's one of my personal favorites, Johnny Kidd, Zoltan Boschik, a name that a lot of people don't really know, Steve Gray, Kid McCoy, King Ben, Young David, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on and on. And what actually, I'd say late 2002 it was, I got to take part in a week-long camp with Dave Taylor, Regal, Fit Finley in Atlanta, Georgia, and Dave and the guys actually taught me quite a bit of the elements of British wrestling. And it's something I really, really enjoyed and something I wanted to implement in my style. So the more I learned, the more videos I watched, I just kind of incorporated that stuff into what I was doing. And not too many people were doing it back in the States, and that's how I kind of got known for doing that. Now, I don't have a strictly British style, if you guys have seen me wrestle before, but I do have, I do use the cravat. I use the cording hold. I use a lot of different maneuvers like that, but it's, I just try to blend as many styles as possible, but I really, really love the British style, and it's a shame that, not too many people are aware of the old British style. I think it's fantastic.
Well, I think it's making a bit of a comeback, do you think, particularly in this country anyway? Some of those guys you listed are still going, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
On our shows lately. You mentioned that you were trained, or you went to a camp with Regal and Finley and Dave Taylor. Mm-hmm. But on your website it says that you also had a lot of other training, like guys like Dory Funk and Ian Rotten. Mm-hmm. And those guys especially, I suppose, Ian Rotten, more kind of like a hardcore style of wrestling.
Yeah. Actually, I think a lot of people know more about Ian nowadays, but, 3-4 years ago, everybody just had that hardcore image of him, and Ian is actually, to any of those people that have seen him in the last couple of years, he's a terrific technical wrestler, he's a terrific mat-based wrestler, and when, let's see, go back in my career a little bit. The original place I trained wasn't very good, so I kind of branched out a bit, went on some shows, and I ended up at Les Thatcher School in Cincinnati, which is where Nigel McGuinness trained. Oh. And a lot of guys, Shark Boy, Matt Stryker with a Y, a lot of guys. Who else? A lot of people that are no longer wrestling anymore. That's beside the point. After there, I went to Dory Funk's. I did a couple camps there, and I learned a tremendous amount from Dory. I believe it was actually before the camps got so watered down, but I really enjoyed my time there. Shortly after that, I started working for IWA Mid-South, and Ian just kind of welcomed me in. I heard a lot of terrible stories about Ian as a person, promoter, wrestler, whatever. But he really took me in as one of his own, and a year later, I ended up moving in with him for a couple months before I moved into my own place down there. So, Ian became very close to me, and I actually got to know him for the person that he was and for the wrestler that he was, and he taught me a lot. Along that way, I actually got to train with a guy named Tracy Smothers, a legend. He never really became a huge star, but he's a really cult underground legend as far as it goes in independence, and I learned a lot from him. And like I said, Taylor, Finley, Regal, you just, you start small, and then as you go on, you never stop training, you never stop learning, and that's something I've always strived to continue to learn. Actually, some people may know Ultimo Dragon's former promotion, Tormon, now Dragon Gate. A lot of his students are actually trained by a guy named Jorge Rivera, who wrestles as Skida. And he has a deal with the Chikara Wrestle Factory, and he comes in, he has been at Chikara 2 months out of like the last 4 months, and he is a phenomenal trainer, and that's a completely different style. He doesn't even speak English, so it can be a bit of a challenge at times, but we can communicate with him rather easily when it comes in the ring. But that's just another style that I continue to learn, the elements of Lucha Libre. It's a very difficult style, and some people like it, some people may not, but it's just something I want to continue to learn and work on. So it's just, the British, the Lucha, the old school. I love it all. Wrestling's great.
So you've talked a little bit there about your trainers, but it also lists on your site that you've got a number of students. So do you have a school, or do you train like yourself?
Around 2001, I started doing little clinics here and there just to kind of help out guys, because the States are obviously a lot bigger than England, so there are further gaps between like a good school here and then maybe it's another 14 hours before you get to another good school. So I was fortunate enough to have people help me when I first started, so I just wanted to pass that along to some people I thought needed a little bit of help here and there. So I started doing clinics at this one school in Cleveland, Ohio, and I spent a lot of time with two guys, one named Chris Cole and one named Arrow. You guys may not know them, but they actually benefited a lot from my helping them. Their problem is they never really got out of Ohio. Actually, Chris Cole is actually in Japan right now on a tour of military bases, and he'll probably be there for the next 3 weeks or so. I'm very happy for him. But as I did a little clinics here and there, as I said, I moved down to work for IWA Mid-South more often, and I ended up helping Ian with his school, and I ended up becoming basically co-head trainer along with Ian, and that's where I got my first female student, Mickey Knuckles, who, if you've ever seen her, she wrestles just like a little guy. I mean, she's really tough. She's a very, very solid wrestler for as inexperienced as she is, and I actually just wrestled her last weekend in a tag match, and I got to beat the crap out of her, so it's fun. Around that time, I started going overseas, and I'd have little clinics here and there. In January, February of 2002, I did a couple shows in Switzerland and Germany. And the German promotion was WXW, which some people here I'm sure know. And actually, when I first started for WXW, it was very small. And actually, the training of a lot of the guys was really just kind of scarce. They didn't really. A lot of them had really good attitudes, but they didn't really have the vision, of what it took to become, a solid professional wrestler. They'd have really good high spots or, really good characters, but they didn't really have all the ingredients. So I offered to start coming over, and obviously I was paid for my efforts, so I wasn't being a total good Samaritan. But I helped out a lot of guys in my original class of 5. 2 no longer wrestle, but the other 3 are the 3 members of Swiss Money Holding: Double C, Aris, and Mark Rudan, I believe his name is now. And obviously Double C got his green card, moved over to the States, and he's a tremendous wrestler. And I'm not going out on a limb here, but he will be one of the most well-known wrestlers in the States, because he has everything. He's got the look, he's got the mind, he's got. If you ever watched him, he has one of the best European uppercuts I've ever seen, and he actually learned that from Dave Taylor himself. So, so I have a lot of different students throughout Europe, Switzerland, Germany, blah blah blah, whatever. And I held a clinic over here for GPW, where I worked with Damon Lee, Joey Hayes, JC Thunder, a couple other guys. And it's just, that's when Quackenbush offered to have me come into his school and become a trainer there. And I moved last July, and that's where I've been ever since. And Chikara, I think, has a good number of very talented students. And, with Mike around and Skyda around, there's nowhere to go but up for them.
Excellent. And they must be incredibly rewarding as well, I would imagine.
It's really, I guess rewarding would be the right word, just to kind of watch, a couple of your students out there and, doing something that would make you proud, Of course, there are times, when you have to pull them aside and yell at them and, punch them in the face, but aside, I'm just kidding. I don't really punch them in the face. Anyway, no, it is really rewarding, seeing, the effort and time you put into helping somebody else out, and then they take the ball and run with it, and they, exceed your expectations. A lot of my students actually are just good to the point where, it pushes me, because I don't want them to, get better than me, and it's kind of embarrassing. So, I love it.
Is that something you might want to move into, actually, when you're kind of done as an active wrestler?
I would love to. I'd love to. I've said many times that if my, career, whatever you want to call it, as an in-ring wrestler had to end for some reason, I would love to stay involved in the business somehow. I'd love to learn all other aspects, whether it be, promoting, booking, whatever. I just love to stay in it. And training is something I really enjoy and something I can see myself doing long after I can no longer wrestle.
Can I go back to your pro debut? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Happy to talk about that. I know it's a couple of years ago, and I believe you wrestled under the name Wife Beater.
That is correct.
Just wonder if you could tell us a bit about that character.
Well, it wasn't really that much of a character. It was more of, I don't know, just somebody not knowing what to do. So, I don't know if it was as popular over here, but the white tank tops, very similar to this one, only in white, are called wife beaters. I don't know. Are they called that over here as well? Okay. Well, the reason they're called wife beaters is we have a television show called Cops, and they're showing like the white trash people, and oh, he just beat me, and the guy comes out of the kitchen and he's wearing a wife beater, and he's got a bottle of beer in his hand trying to swing at people. Hence the name, the wife beater. So these became really popular when I was in high school. Everybody's wearing them, calling them wife beaters, yada yada yada. So I'm like, oh, that's a catchy name, something that might, if you see the name wife beater, obviously there was another wife beater, but if you see that name, it'll make you go, what the hell, which may not have been the best idea, but I don't think it really hurt my career at all, but it was definitely very interesting. So I kind of got away from that about a year and a half after I started wrestling.
And then you became Chris Hero.
That is correct.
And how did that? What are the origins of that name?
I had a show for NWA West Virginia for a promoter named Richard Arpin, who was probably around 600 pounds at the time. I think he has stomach surgery now. He's about down to 300. But anyway, he ran a more family-oriented show, and the guy I was writing with, Logan Kane, Al Snow's half-brother, he told me that it was a family show and that I would not be able to use the name Wife Beater. Yeah. So I had to think of something, and he was giving me very terrible ideas. He wanted me to be like a skateboarder or something like that, and I don't even know how to skateboard. And I just, couldn't really think of anything. And then we stopped off at a rest stop to get some food, and there was a gyro, Euro place, whatever you want to call it.
Kebab.
And yeah, kebab, I believe they call them over here. So kebab, the kebab shop. I've seen many over here. And I just kind of looked at it and was like, well, I need to think of something, and I can't really think of anything. So I'll be Chris Hero, Hyro, haha, something stupid, and that's the name I used for probably about a month before people would either pronounce it Hyro or spell it Hero. So I was just like, that was a dumb idea, at least I got something different, so I became Chris Hero. No really idea behind it. I just started wearing a Superman shirt when I wrestled. Really original.
Are you like a comic book fan, or was it just?
Growing up, I was a big comic book fan, but I kind of got out of it when I got into sports, and now there's 10,000 different comic books, so it's just really hard to get into. But I do enjoy, the occasional comic book or movie.
Sure. Okay, something I wanted to ask you about is, I've just been reading some crazy of your career, I guess. And some of the matches, it says you wrestled for over 90 minutes against CM Punk, I think.
That is correct. I only have one match over 90 minutes.
Okay, but you've wrestled 60 minutes several times.
Oh, several times. I don't really know. I think summer of 2000, my first year for IWA Mid-South, Ian Rotten actually put me in the main event for the first time against a guy named Bull Payne. And we wrestled and, whatever. And then at the end of the match was over 30 minutes long. And I was just like, wow, over 30 minutes, it didn't really seem like anything. And then just from then, I started to realize that, I could, wrestle a longer match and do well. And I just kind of ran with it. A lot of the longer matches I've had weren't really meant to be long matches. They just kind of ended up that way. And I think as long as the crowd is still entertained and not completely bored to tears, I think longer matches don't really matter, I think any kind of match can be entertaining, whether it be 5 minutes or 95 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
But sorry, go ahead.
It's just been, because of the long matches, 60 minutes here, there, and like the 94-minute match, whatever you want to call it, with CM Punk, that's what a lot of people associate me with, longer matches. And hey, whatever. I'm not going to complain, if I'm the guy known for endurance. That's a good thing.
I was going to say, you must have incredible conditioning.
It's actually... Maybe not incredible. Incredible isn't really the word to use. Maybe deceiving, because I've never really been in great shape, with muscles bulging out of my body. But however, at one point in my career, I was almost 300 pounds, and I managed to drop about 65 pounds through dieting and working out. So I did get my body in better shape. And it did take a lot, but it's something I can do. And that's what I'm constantly doing. I'm trying to, always trying to eat better, always trying to go to the gym. And, it's not as easy as it sounds. So a lot of people, it comes more naturally. But I don't really like going to the gym, I like the benefits of, going to the gym and looking better and feeling better, but I don't really like going there. I'd rather just sit in a ring all day and wrestle. But that's, that's kind of boring after a while. I guess you just by yourself in a wrestling ring. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, for somebody of my size, I'm almost 6'5". I'm probably around 235 pounds right now. You wouldn't think would have the endurance to wrestle an hour, hour and a half, whatever. But it's just kind of here. Like I said, not incredible. It's more deceiving than anything else.
Sure. And do you find it hard to? I don't know how to put this exactly, but I guess to keep the fans involved for a full hour or hour and a half.
It can be challenging, but I've found in wrestling, if you can connect with your crowd and get them to have some kind of connection with you, have some kind of feeling toward you, they'll, buy into just about whatever you do. I mean, take somebody like The Rock, for instance. He's not very popular with internet fans, but when he is on a WWF show in front of a crowd, he connects with the audience, and they really care what happens to him, whether he wins or loses, and therefore, he's doing his job. So he's entertaining the people. And that's something that's what the business is about. It's not about, the cool finishing move, the cool dive. It's about connecting with an audience, making them feel special, feel a part of something. And, it's just like watching a movie. You're watching the movie and you're like, oh, come on, don't go in there, you idiot. Idiot, you're dead. So it makes you feel something. Wrestling is no different than a movie, a play, a music video. It gets the emotions running.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you quickly about NWA TNA? I know you had a few.
Absolutely not. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. TNA was a really fun experience for me. I lived in Clarksville, Indiana, which was roughly 2.5 hours from Nashville. And I had a pretty good relationship with Bill Behrens, and he extended the offer to me to just come down as often as I wanted to. Maybe I'd get on the show, maybe I wouldn't. I never managed to get on the pay-per-view, which didn't really bother me. I was just there to get experience, like I said earlier. Wrestle as many places as possible. I ended up being on Explosion almost a dozen times, and I got to wrestle, some guys I never would ever thought I'd get to wrestle, like the Harris Boys, or Conan, or Eric Watts, and I'm never going to get to wrestle those guys anywhere else, so it was a really, really good experience for me. I actually met Terry Taylor at NWA TNA, and he's somebody I still talk to, just about on a weekly basis, so I have no complaints at all. I really enjoyed my time there.
And are you not still there at the moment?
No, actually I moved all the way up towards Philadelphia, and they moved all the way down to Florida. So there's probably about 20 hours difference there. Right. So.
And you've won an awful lot of titles as well, according to your website, which I'm sure is true. I just wondered, how much these titles mean to you. Is it like a big thrill or something to work towards?
Well, I guess I've had a handful of titles that in the long run don't really mean anything for smaller promotions that don't last very long. But I found, if a promotion puts you in a spot to, be in a title match or to be the champion, it's not necessarily that they think you're the best guy for the job or whatever, but it's really, it's an honor to be a representative of the company, regardless of whether you're the champion or one of the most well-known guys from a promotion. It's always good to be, when somebody thinks of a promotion, they associate you with it. Like, anytime people think of IWA Mid-South, usually my name is one of the few that come up there. And it's starting to be like that with me along in Chikara and CZW, and it's really, it's good to know that, either my wrestling, my personality, or whatever is something that people remember when they think of such promotion. So, I'd say not necessarily the titles, but some of the more memorable matches I've had with people, are definitely something that, I don't really know how to explain it. Just something that sticks with you, something that's memorable for you, something you can be proud of.
Yeah, I just want to touch quickly actually, as you brought up on IWA Mid-South, because they've got quite a strong internet following, I think, over here, and I guess in general as well. But you hear recently they put on really stacked cards, talent-wise, but they've got very small gates.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, from my personal point of view, you know, a fan sees a show with only 50 fans and they're like, how are they making money? But believe me, by selling the tapes and DVDs, they'll make that money back. You know, they don't have the money right there at the gate, but they will get that money over time. So, however, I think it is a problem when you stack your shows so completely full, because then the next show that maybe only has 1 or 2 stacked matches just seems like, you know, you kind of burn out the fans, and you have to give the fans a little bit of everything. But if you give them too much, you know, it's like going out to eat. You know, you go to a buffet, and you just you're like, oh, this food's great, you know, and you're stuffing your face, and then finally, you know, you have to undo your belt because, you know, your stomach's so full, and then you're just kind of sick, and you don't want to eat anymore. Next time you think of that buffet, you're gonna be like, oh, you know, I think I'm just gonna get something else, because, you know. You don't want to burn the fans out, and that's something I'm afraid they have done a little bit over the last few months, maybe more than a little bit. But bottom line, the shows are still good, the wrestlers are still talented, but you just can't spoil your fans so much that they expect such a great, long, stacked show.
Sure, I had quite a lot more questions I wanted to ask actually. I've been really enjoying this, but we're running out of time. I think, did you say 5 minutes?
10 minutes.
Oh, 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, well in that case, just quickly while we're on the subject, because I want you guys all to have a chance to ask questions as well, which is why
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
Kidding.
But talking of, IWA Mid-South, the crowd's 50, and shows that arguably are booked maybe more towards like internet fans or smart marks. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on, I guess, internet fans.
I mean, internet fans are just like any other fans, you know. You know, some are respectable and some aren't, you know. It's really easy for someone to, you know, I mean, just like watching movies, you know, it's easy for someone to go, well, that was a good movie, or, oh, that movie sucked, you know. That's what we do all the time, you know. However, when you get in a more detailed kind of environment, you know, people get real touchy, your feelings get hurt, you know. I've just learned to not really let what people say go straight to your heart, you know. You just kind of have to, you know, there are a number of smart marks that I am on a somewhat friendly basis with, and some that I value their opinions. There's others that I know are just idiots, you know, and I'm sure you guys know plenty of people on the internet that are idiots. Am I right? Yeah. So I mean, everybody's entitled to their own opinion in the long run. So you just can't really take it too seriously. But it is good to know that some people enjoy what you're doing. So that's one benefit of it.
Oh, sure. What about the effect of the internet on the business as a whole? Do you think it's had an effect?
Yeah, it's definitely had an effect, because I know a lot of people that are in the business today because of the internet, you know, whether it be like, oh wow, I never knew there were any wrestling schools until I looked on the internet and found there was one an hour away. You know, it's like that. I guess time will really tell, you know, in the next, you know, 5-10 years how the impact has had in the long run, you know. But I think it's a generally good, you know, impact. I think it's going to force promotions and wrestlers to work harder and, you know, become better at their craft, because, you know, you can't, as a wrestler, you can't go out there and have the same match every night, you know. Before, you probably could, you know, just like, you know, I've had this conversation with people before, like, say the old World of Sport days with the British wrestling. A lot of the guys could go out there and do the same stuff every time because the matches weren't recorded on video, therefore people, you know, wouldn't say, oh, hey, he did the same thing, you know. However, you know, now there are fans that have every single tape of every show, so that they're like, oh, wow, he's just doing the same thing, and therefore it'll be harder to entertain that person. So I think it just makes people, you know, work harder. You have to learn more and, you know, become better at what you do.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah. I guess we've got a few more minutes left. So, do any of you guys have questions? Yeah, at the back.
Chris, good to see you in the UK again. And as you've already stated, you've been over here a couple of times before. You've mentioned Paul Burchill, but has there been any other UK wrestlers that have stand out in your mind that have impressed you?
Well, obviously another name that comes to mind is Doug Williams. I wrestled Doug in a couple matches. The first match I had with him was in Austria. And then I believe we had a rounds match in Southampton that went very well. I mean, I can't, there's no really sense talking about Doug because you guys know how great he is. He's in Japan right now, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, everybody knows how good Doug is, so I'll just move to the next person. Next person is in British wrestling. Another person that some people may know, some people may not know, he's a guy that wrestles for Brian Dixon. And his wrestling name isn't the best wrestling name. His name is Mikey Whiplash. However, I've had the chance to work with Mikey on several shows. Team with him, wrestle him, whatever, live with him, and I think he is a very talented person. Whether it be he's more of a character than a wrestler, but I definitely think he's a solid wrestler. He's actually spent quite a bit of time training with Robbie Brookside, and I think if he ever really had the outlet, he could really become a star because of just the way he relates with a crowd and the way he's just a student of the game. He works really hard to improve his wrestling. He's somebody that sticks out in my mind. There are a lot of talented guys. I got to work with James Mason. I was really happy about that. I first saw him on the Chinooka Pro Show as well, and I wrestled him. I'm not quite sure of the town, but we had a singles match, and I was really happy with it. He's a very, very talented wrestler. He's somebody that really embodies that British style. There's so many more people. I just don't want to really continue. I'll leave people out and people feel bad, but there are definitely a lot of talented wrestlers over here.
Anyone else with questions?
Chris, what's your hopes and dreams in the rest of your wrestling career?
Well, kind of like I said earlier, I just want to continue to wrestle as many different places as possible. I definitely want to go back to Japan. I had a really good time there. I was only there 2 weeks, but I got to wrestle Men's Teo, and Men's Teo is a very good wrestler, and I really enjoyed that. So I got to wrestle in Korakuen Hall, which is one of the most famous arenas in Japan, and to see the walls with everybody's autograph on them, from Americans that have been there to the wall where you can see Muhammad Ali wrote his name on the wall. It's just a really, really good feeling, and I really don't care. I want to go to Canada. I want to go to Mexico. I just want to keep wrestling, and I never want to get to the point where I just kind of flatten out and don't get any better. I just always want to. I can see myself from 6 months ago, and I know I'm a better wrestler now, and I can see myself from 6 months before that. I'm a lot better than that now, and I just want to continue to keep going up and keep learning from as many people as possible.
Right. Anyone else? I can see a hand. Yeah, go with glasses. Yeah.
Yes, mate. Chris, I know you said you want to go back to Japan and everything and that. I was wondering, after tonight's match with Zebra Kid, win, lose or draw, would you consider working for the FWA on a permanent basis?
Well, if FWA would have me, I'd be more than willing to come back. I really enjoy being in England. It's something I really was looking forward to the first time I came over, and it really hasn't changed. I really like it over here, and I'd love to come over to FWA as long as they have me.
Excellent. Anyone else? Yeah.
I know you've worked in lots of different promotions. It'll be kind of not direct, but who would you say has been your favourite person to work?
I really don't have a favorite. Like I said, I could list names and names and names, but there's just a lot of people that I end up having pretty good chemistry with in the ring, and a lot of people I've had good matches with. So I really enjoyed wrestling American Dragon. I've only gotten to wrestle him 3 matches back home, 2 matches over here at a Butlin's camp. Get the video. And I've had really good matches of late with Claudio Castagnoli, Double C, whatever you want to call him. So, I could name 24 people if I sat here and thought about it, but that's...
Is there anyone you'd like to wrestle, like a dream opponent, living or dead?
As far as singles matches go, as far as who's on the independent scene right now, or guys that are potentially on the independent scene, I've never wrestled Spanky. I've never had a singles match with Chris Daniels. I would love to wrestle Reckless Youth. He's not really wrestling right now, but I'm at Shikara, and his past with Mike Quackenbush. I'm sure that it'll probably come up sometime, hopefully. Living or dead, the 3 people I always name are Dean Malenko, Toshiaki Kawada of All Japan, and Johnny Saint. 3 guys I'd love to wrestle, in their prime, in my prime, whatever. Just at least, meet them and be around them.
Excellent. Okay, well, we're just about out of time. Does anyone have one quick question? Very under our time. Oh, yeah, sorry, go for it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe asking the wrong question here, but do you think we'll ever see you in ROH?
Oh, good question.
I don't. Where Ring of Honor is and where I am, they don't really coincide. I'm doing my own thing. I'm really happy with what I'm doing, and I've described it before as like a mutual lack of interest. I don't really have any interest in wrestling for Ring of Honor, and they don't have any interest in using me, so it just kind of works out well.
Great. Okay, well, guys, he's facing the Zebra Kid tonight. I'm sure we wish you luck for that, Chris Hero. Chris Hero.